At my son's funeral, my sister handed out invitations to her twins' gender reveal party. The church dome loomed over a heavy silence, where sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting dappled yet frigid patches of light. Soft sobs wove through the air like gossamer, clinging relentlessly. I stood before the casket, my fingertips barely grazing its icy wood, while my gaze remained fixed on the photos lining the walls, snapshots of my son Daniel, his 23-year-old life frozen in time, beaming in a crisp tuxedo at his high school graduation, his smile bright enough to dispel darkness, kneeling gently beside a sick child at the children's hospital, his eyes soft as water as he told a story, laughing wildly with college friends on a grassy lawn, the sun kissing his face with youthful exuberance. But now, all that vibrancy was gone. 3 weeks earlier, a drunk driver had crossed the median on Highway 7, shattering Daniel's life, and mine, beyond repair. The accident was so catastrophic that the doctors deemed him unviewable. The casket remained sealed from start to finish. I secretly cherished that small mercy, grateful that in my mind, Daniel would forever be the unblemished, spirited young man in those photos, not the broken shell beneath the wood. Mourners dressed in black filled the church, a sea of grief stretching from wall to wall. Pastor Williams stood at the pulpit, his voice low and trembling as he spoke of Daniel's kindness, how he'd volunteered at nursing homes in college, donated his first paycheck to an animal shelter, and even planned to organize a book drive for mountain children just days before his death. Each word felt like a needle piercing my already shattered heart, and tears flooded my eyes, blurring the photos and the world beyond. I bit my lip so hard I tasted iron, my shoulders shaking uncontrollably as my husband James wrapped a firm arm around my waist, holding me back from the edge of collapse. Then, a rustle of fabric broke the reverence from the third row. I turned instinctively to see my sister Victoria rising to her feet. She wore a garish coral dress, its sequins glinting offensively in the dim church, and sharp contrast to the sea of black surrounding her, like a thorn plunged into an open wound. Unabashed, she raised her voice, cutting off the pastor mid-eulogy. "I'm sorry for the interruption, but everyone needs some good news today." The church fell silent, all eyes fixed on her, some in shock, some in confusion, most in unmasked disapproval. But she seemed oblivious, a broad smile spreading across her face as she stepped into the aisle. Daniel was always optimistic. He'd want us to celebrate life, not drown in sorrow. With that, she pulled a stack of powder blue envelopes from her designer handbag, running her fingers over their edges with a tone of pride. "Mark and I are having twins. We're throwing a gender reveal party at the city's most luxurious venue next month, and since everyone's here, I thought I'd pass out invitations now. You must come." Her high heels clicked against the floor, a harsh, rhythmic tapping that grated on everyone's nerves. She handed invitations to Daniel's friends, ignoring their stunned disbelief. She approached our mother, who paled and tugged at her dress, urging her to stop, but Victoria brushed her off with a laugh. "Mom, it's a happy occasion." What struck me like a bolt of lightning, though, was when she walked up to the casket, bent down, and placed an invitation on its cold surface, patting it gently with childlike satisfaction. "Daniel, I know you can't be here in person, but I'm inviting your spirit to witness my happiness." In that moment, my throat felt constricted by a red-hot boulder, rendering me breathless. The tears stopped abruptly, replaced by a bone-deep chill. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, and I felt their eyes on me, sympathetic, pitying, and tinged with an awkward discomfort. James's hand tightened around mine, but his warmth couldn't penetrate the icy barrier around my heart. I watched as Victoria handed out invitations without a second thought, as casually as if she were distributing wedding favors, treating my son's funeral like nothing more than a convenient venue to share her news. After the service, my mother hurried over, her eyes red with tears. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she'd do this," I yelled at her, "but she's just so thoughtless." I opened my mouth but only managed a hoarse whisper. "She's always been like this, selfish, never thinking of anyone but herself." Before I could say more, Victoria approached, her smile still lingering, completely unaware of my anguish. She squeezed my arm lightly. "See, everyone was touched. So many people said this was the only bright spot today. You have to come. I reserved the best seat for you at the venue." I snatched my hand away, my fingers cold as ice, and walked away without a glance. The moment I slammed the car door shut, my suppressed sobs erupted, raw and unrelenting. In the weeks that followed, my life ground to a halt, plunging into an endless darkness. I took an indefinite leave from teaching. The classroom I'd once loved, the children's laughter that had brought me joy, now felt meaningless. James busied himself with legal matters surrounding the accident, returning home exhausted each night yet still forcing a smile to comfort me. Daniel's presence lingered everywhere in our house. The half-read medical books on his desk, the favorite pillow he'd cuddled on the couch, the cartoon magnets he'd stuck on the fridge, even the faint scent of his laundry detergent hanging in the air. But these reminders only rubbed salt into my wounds, a constant taunt that he was gone forever. The chair at the dinner table remained empty, the sound of his key turning in the lock never came again. The silence engulfed me, suffocating. I sought refuge at the Riverside Medical Research Foundation, my lifeline, the reason I kept going. I'd founded it 8 years earlier with my grandmother's $500,000 inheritance, driven by a painful memory from when I was 12. My best friend Lily had been diagnosed with a rare pediatric disease. Doctors had an experimental treatment, but the cost was prohibitive for her family. I watched as her parents begged for help, sold all their possessions, even mortgaged their home, yet they still couldn't raise enough money. On her deathbed, Lily had grasped my hand and whispered, "Margaret, I just want to live." Those words were etched into my soul, and I'd vowed then to ensure no other family would endure that kind of despair. The foundation focused on rare pediatric diseases and trauma recovery. It had started in a tiny office with just 2 employees, myself doubling as director and clerk, pounding the pavement to find donors, staying up late to write grant proposals. Over 8 years, with countless supporters, it had grown into an organization occupying the entire 10th floor of a downtown high-rise, overlooking a winding river, with bright, immaculate offices and state-of-the-art laboratories. We now had 15 staff members, all sharing the same founding vision, with an annual budget of $12 million. We'd provided medical assistance to over 2,000 families, funded 60% of Hartwell syndrome treatments in North America, and partnered with more than 20 top children's hospitals nationwide to advance rare disease research. Daniel had always supported my work. He dreamed of becoming a pediatric surgeon and joining the foundation after graduation. We'd spent hours in my office, envisioning the future together. Now, I was left to carry on that mission alone. My assistant Sophie brought in the next quarter's grant applications. As I flipped through the files, stories of despair leaped off the pages. A family in Oregon whose daughter suffered from a rare neurodegenerative disease, in desperate need of stem cell therapy. A research team in Boston developing a new treatment for severe childhood trauma, promising higher recovery rates. A children's hospital in Phoenix seeking funds to expand its genetic testing center, hoping to diagnose rare diseases earlier. Each application represented a family on the brink, just like Lily's family, just like mine. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus, knowing that throwing myself into this work was the only way to temporarily numb my pain. Meanwhile, Victoria's gender reveal party went ahead as planned. I refused to attend, and I didn't want to hear a word about it. My mother called, her voice tentative. The party was extravagant. She rented the entire penthouse terrace, decorated it like a fairy tale, invited over 100 people. Victoria wore a custom maternity gown and beamed as everyone congratulated her. She paused, then added, "She asked about you. Said she was hurt you didn't come, that you always prioritize that volunteer job over everything else." "I was working," I replied flatly, not bothering to correct her. My family had never understood my dedication to the foundation. To them, it was just a charity hobby. I remembered last year, when I'd missed Victoria's birthday party to attend a crucial foundation board meeting. She'd screamed at me over the phone, "It's just a hobby, sis. Why do you take it so seriously? You don't care about me at all." I'd tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. Now I realized, a chasm had always existed between us, one that seemed unbridgeable. 3 months after Daniel's funeral, on an ordinary afternoon, I was reviewing a research report on childhood trauma recovery when Sophie's voice came over the intercom. "Dr. Peterson, a Ms. Victoria Brennan is here to see you, no appointment, but she says it's an emergency involving 2 lives." She's been crying in the waiting room for ages, and I can't get her to leave. At the sound of Victoria's name, my pen skittered across the page, leaving a long, jagged line. I fell silent for a moment, then said, "Let her in." When the door opened, I barely recognized her. Gone was the confident, radiant woman from the funeral and the party. Her eyes were swollen and bloodshot, filled with exhaustion and terror. Her once neat hair clung to her cheeks in disheveled strands. Her designer dress was wrinkled and stained, paired awkwardly with a baggy sweater, making her look utterly disheveled. Her 5-month pregnant belly protruded beneath the sweater, and she stumbled forward unsteadily, her hands clutching her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Sis, thank you for seeing me," she whispered, her voice hoarse and nasal, tears streaming down her face like broken beads. "I begged Sophie for ages, she said you don't take walk-ins, but I had no choice. I'm desperate." She collapsed into the chair opposite me, leaning forward with her hands gripping the edge of my desk, her knuckles widening with the effort. "At my 20-week ultrasound, the doctor found something. The twins, they have Hartwell syndrome. It's a rare genetic disease, I'd never even heard of it." Her voice rose sharply, cracking with hysteria. "The doctor says it's fatal if left untreated, they might not live past their first birthday. There's an experimental treatment, but it has to start right after they're born, and insurance won't cover it. It's $300,000 per baby. $600,000 total, sis. $600,000. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders heaving with muffled, desperate sobs. "Mark's business has been struggling for years, we lost so much during the pandemic. We spent a fortune on fertility treatments to have these babies, and now we have no money left. I've borrowed from every friend and family member, but it's not enough." She lifted her head, her eyes red and wild, pleading with me. "I researched online. There are only 2 foundations in the country that fund this treatment, and yours is one of them. I called for weeks, begging to see the director, but they said you were too busy with grant applications. I had no other option, I had to come here." She reached out a trembling hand, hesitating halfway as if fearing rejection. "I know you're just a volunteer here, sis, but you're so kind. Can you please arrange a meeting with the director? Please, my daughter's lives depend on it. I can't lose them. I can't lose anything else." Her voice broke, each word dripping with urgency and despair, as if she might crumble at any moment. As I looked at her tear-stained face, conflicting emotions surged within me. The pain of her betrayal at Daniel's funeral was still fresh, but I couldn't bring myself to turn away from her desperation. I pressed the intercom. "Sophie, bring in the Brennan family's grant application." Victoria's head snapped up, surprise and confusion flickering across her swollen face. "Sis, how did you know I applied?" Sophie quickly appeared with a folder, placing it on my desk. The label read clearly, "Brennan family, twin infants with Hartwell syndrome, requested funding, $600,000. We received 572 grant applications this quarter, yours came in last week," I said, opening the folder to reveal a complete set of documents, detailed medical records from Dr. Sarah Winters confirming the diagnosis and treatment plan, financial statements outlining their income and debts, and a letter of recommendation from their obstetrician, attesting to their dedication to their unborn children. "I've already reviewed your materials. They're complete." My voice was calm, steady. A glimmer of hope sparked in Victoria's eyes as she leaned forward. "So, can you pass a message to the director? Tell them how urgent this is, I'll do anything to save my babies." Instead of answering, I picked up my pen, signed my name at the bottom of the approval form, then slowly turned the nameplate on my desk toward her. "Dr. Margaret Peterson, Founder Executive Director, Riverside Medical Research Foundation." Victoria's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. She stared at the nameplate, then at me, then back at the nameplate, her mouth opening and closing wordlessly, her chest heaving with rapid breaths. "Why, you're the executive director," she stammered, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Mom said you were just a volunteer. I founded this foundation 8 years ago," I said quietly. "From 2 employees to a team of 15, from a modest budget to $40 million in medical research grants and treatment funding. As the words sank in, Victoria's composure shattered completely. Tears poured down her face, this time filled with overwhelming guilt and remorse. She stood up with a rush, dropping to her knees before me, clutching the legs of my pants, her voice choked with sobs. "Sis, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Her shoulders shook violently. "What I did at Daniel's funeral. I was terrible. I shouldn't have interrupted the eulogy, shouldn't have flaunted my news, shouldn't have ignored your pain. I was so selfish, all I could think about was my own happiness, my pregnancy. I never stopped to think about how much you were hurting, how much Daniel meant to you." She looked up, her face streaked with tears, her eyes filled with contrition. "I know I hurt you. I don't deserve your forgiveness, let alone funding from your foundation. But the babies are innocent, they haven't even had a chance to see the world. They shouldn't pay for my mistakes. Please, sis, please save them. I'll do anything." I quickly helped her to her feet, handing her a box of tissues. She dabbed at her eyes, but the tears kept coming. "All these years, I mocked your work, called it a hobby, got angry when you missed my birthday for board meetings. I never understood how important it was, how hard you worked. It wasn't until I was staring at the same despair Lily's family felt that I realized what you do is extraordinary. You're so kind. The foundation exists to ensure children don't suffer for their parents' mistakes," I said, thinking of Lily, of all the families we'd helped. "Your daughters meet our funding criteria. Dr. Winters is a leading expert in this field, and you've secured a spot at our partner hospital, Children's Memorial. So I'm approving your full funding request, $600,000, covering all treatment costs for the first year after their birth." Victoria stared at me in disbelief, her eyes wide with shock. Then, tears of joy and gratitude flooded her face. "Really? Sis, is it true? They're going to be okay?" I nodded. She let out a choked sob, clasping her hands together in thanks, unable to speak. "But there are 3 conditions," I said, my voice serious. "First, starting after the babies are born, you and Mark must complete 20 hours of community service each year until they turn 18, helping other families at the foundation with their applications, answering questions, so you can truly understand their struggles. Second, you must attend our monthly family support group, sharing your experience, the fear of diagnosis, the despair of funding shortages, the challenges of treatment, to give hope to others. Third, you must write a letter to the Foundation's board, detailing how a medical crisis can destroy a family, and what you've learned about life and kindness. This letter will be read at our annual fundraising gala." Victoria nodded vigorously, her eyes still glistening with tears but filled with unwavering determination. "I'll do it. I'll do anything, 30 conditions, 300, whatever you ask. Thank you, sis, for giving me a second chance, for saving my babies, for saving me. I'll never be that selfish person again. I'll make amends, I promise." She wiped her tears, her voice trembling with relief and resolve. From that day on, Victoria was a changed woman. She abandoned her lavish parties, stopped complaining about trivial matters, and focused all her energy on preparing for the baby's arrival and fulfilling her promises. She researched rare diseases tirelessly, studied the Foundation's grant process, and even contacted the support group leader to express her eagerness to participate. On the day the twins were born, I received a call from Victoria, her voice brimming with exhaustion yet radiant with joy. "Sis, they're here. 2 little girls, healthy and perfect. The doctor says treatment can start next week." I dropped everything and rushed to the hospital. In the room, Victoria wore a simple hospital gown, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, no trace of her usual makeup, yet her face glowed with a soft, maternal warmth. She held one baby gently in her arms, Mark the other, their tiny mouths slightly agape as they slept, utterly precious. "Sis, meet Anna and Isabella," Victoria whispered, brushing a finger lightly over one baby's cheek, her eyes filled with adoration. "None of this would be possible without you, without the Foundation. They might not have survived, let alone thrived. I'll never forget this." Her voice cracked with emotion. "I've started writing that letter. Every night after they fall asleep, I sit at the desk and write. I'm pouring out everything, the terror of the diagnosis, the despair of not having enough money, the guilt I feel for hurting you, and the gratitude I have for this second chance. I want to share my story to raise awareness for rare disease families, to help the foundation raise more funds, to give back to all the people who helped us. In the months that followed, Victoria kept her word without hesitation. Every weekend, she arrived at the foundation promptly, wearing a volunteer vest, and threw herself into helping other families, organizing application materials, answering questions, listening patiently to their struggles. When she encountered parents on the verge of collapse, she'd take their hands and share her own journey. I was where you are now, hopeless, like the world was ending. But look at my girls, they're healthy, they're happy. Don't give up. There is hope. Her words were sincere and powerful, touching everyone who heard them. She never missed a monthly support group meeting. She opened up completely, baring her soul, from her selfishness at Daniel's funeral to her desperation after the diagnosis, from the relief of receiving funding to the joy of watching her daughters grow. Once, a mother whose child had just been diagnosed broke down crying, "It's my fault. I couldn't give her a healthy body. I want to give up." Victoria pulled her into a tight hug. "It's not your fault. The disease is the enemy, not us, not our children. All we can do is love them fiercely and fight for them. If someone as selfish as me can be forgiven and given a second chance, so can you. You're not alone." Her words reignited the mother's courage to keep going. At the annual fundraising gala, Victoria stood on stage in a simple black dress, holding the letter she'd spent months writing. Her voice was calm yet resolute as she read aloud, every word echoing through the silent room. Many in the audience wiped away tears as she spoke. When she reached the line, "My sister was saving other children while grieving the loss of her own, and I was passing out party invitations at her son's funeral. She chose kindness over revenge, healing over bitterness." When she approved my grant, the room erupted in thunderous applause. After the gala, countless donors approached me, offering to increase their contributions. That single letter raised an additional $500,000 for the foundation, far exceeding our expectations. Time flew by, and before I knew it, Anna and Isabella were 3 years old. Thanks to timely treatment and constant care, they were as lively and healthy as any other children, running, laughing, calling out "Mommy," "Daddy," and "Aunt Margaret" in their sweet voices. Every month Victoria brought them to the foundation, and the 2 little girls would rush to me, wrapping their tiny arms around my legs, showering me with drawings they'd made. As I looked at their innocent smiles, I saw Daniel's face in them, and the pain in my heart gradually softened into warmth. On Daniel's birthday, James, Victoria's family, and Daniel's friends joined me at his favorite spot, a lakeside park. The sun shone brightly, the breeze rustled gently, and the lake glistened like a sheet of glass. Victoria held a bouquet of sunflowers, Daniel's favorite flower, and placed it on the bench where he used to sit. "Daniel," she said softly, her voice filled with sincerity, "thank you for watching over us, for watching over Anna and Isabella. I know I made terrible mistakes, I hurt your mom, I took your kindness for granted. But I've spent these years trying to make amends. I've helped others, I've grown, and I promise I'll keep your spirit of kindness alive, in raising my daughters, in loving my family, in never being that selfish person again." She turned to me, her eyes brimming with tears of remorse and gratitude. "Sis, I'm so sorry for being so selfish, for not understanding your pain, for mocking your work. Thank you for forgiving me, for giving me and my daughters a second chance at life. Now I finally understand, this isn't just a hobby for you. It's a calling, a mission to save countless families from despair. I'll stand by you forever, helping you run the foundation, supporting you every step of the way, and honoring Daniel's legacy by helping as many children as we can." As I looked at her, my heart was filled with a mix of emotions, grief for Daniel, forgiveness for Victoria, and hope for the future. The rift that had once separated us, the pain that had once consumed me, had faded away with time, and her sincere change of heart. I stepped forward and pulled her into a gentle hug. "Let the past stay in the past. We're sisters, blood is thicker than water. Daniel would be so proud of you now, proud of the woman you've become, proud of his 2 beautiful little cousins, proud of all the lives the foundation has touched. He's smiling down on us, I know it. James stood nearby, smiling warmly. Anna and Isabella ran over, taking my hand and Victoria's hand, chattering excitedly. Daniel's friends gathered around, and one of them said, "Margaret, Victoria, seeing you both happy, seeing this family whole again. Daniel always wanted us to find joy even after he was gone. Today, his wish has come true." The sun shone down on us, warm and golden. I looked up at the sky and for a moment, I swore I saw Daniel smile, bright, kind, and full of peace. I realized then that some wounds never fully heal, but love and forgiveness can ease the pain. Some losses can never be undone, but purpose and mission can give life new meaning. Under our joint efforts, the Riverside Medical Research Foundation helped more and more families. Victoria became our most dedicated volunteer. Her story spread far and wide, inspiring countless people to face adversity with courage, to choose kindness over bitterness, to pass on hope to those in need. And as for me, in helping others, I found peace, I found strength, and I kept Daniel's legacy alive. Life is an unpredictable journey, filled with heartache and setbacks, misunderstandings and rifts. But if we carry love, forgiveness, and purpose in our hearts, we can grow through pain, rebuild through despair, and find light in the darkest of times. Like the hope that springs from suffering, like the life that blooms through redemption, these are the most precious gifts life has to offer. And this gift, this legacy of love and kindness, will live on forever, passed down from one generation to the next.